Welcome. As we gather in this place and as a spiritual community, we seek to be a safe place where, for all people, of all races, creeds, ages, cultural backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, to gather in worship. Thanks be. And as we gather in this place, thinking of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we remember with gratitude that we live and worship on lands that are, by law, the unceded territories of the Mi'kmaq. And so may we live with respect on this land and in peace and friendship with each other. Let's gather as we join in singing Where Two or Three Are Gathered. I believe we're going to do a round, but I'll let the choir mention that. A microphone, you could borrow one Judy has right there. It's on.
Okay, we're going to sing the first verse. Well, it's just the one verse. The first time we're going to sing it all in unison. The second time we're going to do it in round. This is going to be one. Actually, because there's just a few people from here on, we're going to do the first verse, and we're going to do this. The second round will be you, and the third round will be the choir, John. And we're going to do a round 2 times. So.
What's that John doing there?
In the beginning, there is a story.
Told around campfires in the desert.
Shared around tables where bread is broken.
Written on pieces of soft leather.
Then in pages bound together in a book.
These are our sacred stories. Our spiritual journey is made of stories.
A flickering of the divine here.
A spark of hope there.
A flame of insight.
A kindling of faith.
These are our spiritual memoirs. Here in this place, gathered around this light,
we are honoring the sacred in our lives. Story is the fire in our midst.
So let us come in a time of prayer. Here in this place, honest in community and hearts open to truth, we pause to reflect on the week that has been. Let us hold in gratitude the people, the times, the experiences that sustained us and turned us toward all that is good and true and beautiful. Let us also hold in quiet prayer those times when we were less than proud of ourselves, or when we fell short of our own hopes for wholeness, or when we turned aside from good that we could have done. Let us know that we can bring truth to this moment and rise again. We face into a new week, renewed, restored, and blessed. Thanks be. Amen. And so grounding ourselves in those places and moments of gratitude, we take a moment to share in community if we're so moved, or to hold in silence those times this past week when we felt the Spirit of God, where we came close to the presence of God, when we were moved to proclaim, wow. What?
So a few weeks ago, I recruited 2 local Stylesville girls to help us with the breakfast. And the wow moment for me was yesterday when Kaylee, the oldest girl, looked at me and she said, "Linda, I want to come back next year." And to me, that is the wow moment for the people in this room that made those 2 girls feel welcome and appreciated, and the kindness and the welcome.
Just to add that, Glenn and I were talking about this last week. Those 2 girls worked like dogs. They were just like the littler one. She was just back and forth. She was coming like, you know, any of you that came to the pancake breakfast yesterday. I was the dairy gal. I wrote on my tag. She was Reverend Bean. Anyways. So, but she was just like, she didn't wait for anything. If I didn't have any milk there on the table, she was right back there in the cooler, and she was, I tell you, the both of them, they just kept an eye out, and I thought, great, good for them, and I'm glad to see that our younger generation is coming in and helping us out, and I welcome them next year.
Thank you.
And further to yesterday, just in case you wonder about the leftovers from the brunch, you should all get the chance to go to the House of Nazareth and go in with the leftovers. They are so grateful and gracious and so thankful for it. You'd think we were bringing them the Queen's dinner.
Thank you. Peggy. 2 Peggy's here, side by side.
My wow moment happened this morning when I looked up, and here was Phyllis Fowler, my home visitor. Now, Phyllis has trouble with her vision, and Sean and I have been to her place, and we just love going there. We get more from the visit than we can give. So it was really a wow moment when she walked up the stairs with her daughter this morning.
Sharon, right, Sharon?
Sharon.
Yes. Well, welcome, Phyllis and Sharon. It is wonderful. And Peggy's right. I think we get more out of our visit than we give. Thank you for those sharings that we offer in community and celebrate. Well, we don't have any children here this morning, but I still want to spend a few moments with our, what we call our theme conversation. Today we're beginning a special series in our spirit gatherings. It's going to last for several weeks, and it's called Spiritual Memoir. It's part of what we're calling the Spiritual Memoirs Project, which has been a partnership over the past year between Visions United and the Prayer Bench Ministry, which is an online ministry, retreat ministry hosted by Janice McLean. And Janice is actually going to be with us in a couple of weeks' time to share with you what's happened with that project over the past year and to tell some of the story of it. But meanwhile, for a few Sundays before she comes and a few Sundays afterwards, we're going to be working with this theme of spiritual memoir. And some of you may remember or recall I was away the first Sunday of March, and where I was in Ontario with Janice for a bit of a writing retreat, and this is what emerged from that. So each week we have a reminder of a campfire here as a centering of focus for us. Have any of you gathered around a campfire before? Lots of hands, right? And when we think about gathering around a campfire, what do you recall? What comes to mind? Mosquitoes. It's interesting you should say mosquitoes. You'll have to ask me sometime, I won't go into it now, about my image of God when I was trying to discern a sense of call to ministry. I said God was like a mosquito that wouldn't go away. So it's funny that you should say mosquitoes. What else comes to mind as we think about campfires? Singing, camp songs, yes. The smell of smoke.
Being hot in the front and cold in the back.
Yes, hot in the front and cold, chilly. You need a blanket to cover your back. Sometimes maybe we enjoy some treats, some food, like s'mores. Anyone else like s'mores? Marshmallows on a stick, roasted wieners, or hot dogs. Do you ever tell some stories? Jim's a good storyteller? Mm-hmm. Telling some stories. I know certainly at church camps, like at Camp Tawasi, every evening. There's treats, there's lots of singing, and there's some storytelling. Well, whenever I see a campfire, I am reminded of the story of the Bible and how it came to be. I imagine it was something like this. It's night, and the sky is filled with stars. And the people who have journeyed together, it's been a long day. And at night they find themselves seated in a circle around the campfire. Their hearts are ready for a story. And perhaps a young child says, "Tell us the story about how the world came to be." And maybe the creation story is told. Or perhaps a child says, "Tell us that story about the time when Jacob used a stone for a pillow." And as they listened to those ancient stories, they saw themselves. That's how the Bible came to be. Stories that were told over and over again by ancient people, sitting in circle around a fire, sharing the story of faith, and in hearing those stories, catching a glimpse of where they are in the story. And so this morning, let's listen to that story of the time when Jacob used a stone for a pillow.
Our reading today is part of Jacob's spiritual memoir, found in Genesis 28. I'll be reading verses 10 to 19. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed. In you and in your offspring, knowing that I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on the top of it. He called that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first.
So in that story, we hear of Jacob's dream. It happens in this ordinary place that Jacob finds himself at the end of a long and troubled day. He had tricked his father Isaac and cheated his brother Esau out of his birthright, and he was on the run. And in this place of no particular significance, Jacob takes a stone for a pillow, lays down to sleep, and dreams of this mystical ladder that connects him with the presence of the holy. This place of no particular significance is now this thin place where the holy is close. God is here now. God is not far off, but right in the midst of all that is Jacob's life. And Jacob wakes and stretches, and so real was the night presence that he confirms in the daylight what he saw in his dream. Surely God is in this place, and I did not know it. Jacob's story is spiritual memoir in that it invites us to wonder about the moments in our lives when we awaken to the presence of God in the midst of the ordinary. And spiritual memoir begins when we ask, what do I make of this experience? Where is God in this? Surely God is in this. This is the story of our spiritual memoir. Surely God is in this. Sometimes our spiritual memoir is a shout. That, God, that. I mean, think about the places when you felt so close to God, the places where you felt most whole within yourself. For some, it is in their garden and in the connection of hands and dirt. And in this place we shout, surely God is in this. For some, it's the beach and the rhythm of the tides that brings healing and peace. And in this place we shout, surely God is in this. For some, it is a time with family or friends or being with children who are so completely in the joy of the moment. And we shout, surely God is in this. Surely God is in this. A shout, a praise, a cry of gratitude. Sometimes our spiritual memoir is spun out of a thin place, which with time becomes deeply, deeply meaningful. Surely God is in this. Perhaps our spiritual memoir is a murmur. Oh God, why? Perhaps we look back on times of our life when, like Jacob, we've known struggles, made mistakes, or just ran away from it. In the midst of these times, we might wonder, where is God? Our overwhelmed feelings, our shame, the blur of passing days, the pain of life shock leaves us without a clear sense of presence. We might hope, surely God is in this. And yet we wonder. In a quiet moment, we might silently scream, surely God is in this? But we don't know. Surely God is in this? It's a murmur, a plea of hope, a fervent prayer. Sometimes our spiritual memoir is born in an empty space. And only by looking back can we, like Jacob, wake up one morning with a sense that something has changed and we are not alone. Surely God is in this. Sometimes our spiritual memoir forms around an insight, like, wow, really, God? We look back on ordinary events and we see how utterly foundational they are in shaping the values of our life, influencing our path and direction, and showing us the presence of the holy that's with us all along. Jacob's dream was only a dream until Jacob reflected and woke up to its significance. That ladder was only a ladder, but it turned mystical when Jacob realized at daylight that he indeed was a Jacob. He was a climber, and true to the meaning of his name, a bit of a heel. In spite of this, in spite of being on the run, in spite of tricking his father, in spite of stealing his brother Esau's birthright, God had come to meet him where he was. Surely God is in this. That happens for us too. We're prompted to look back. It might be a significant dream or an ordinary, almost but forgotten moment. We reflect on it and we see new significance. Surely God is in this. It's a wow, an hallelujah, an awesome connection. Sometimes our spiritual memoir is an exclamation point, and we see it only when we reflect on our ordinary stories and wonder how they influenced us, or recall memories and ask what we've learned. Surely God is in this. Our reflection on our ordinary lives is our spiritual memoir, and it honors the sacred in all of our days. Thanks be.
I'm not picking on him. He was that quiet.
Glory of His name.
So I want to invite you into a time of storytelling, but first a little bit of quiet reflection. We won't have time to really get into telling a story with one another. Don't worry about that. These are for you to take home and spend some time in. But let's just spend a moment thinking about these questions. If you could recall a place when you felt close to God or most whole within yourself. That might be a moment when you would have that realization, as Jacob did, surely God is in this. Maybe you might recall a challenging time in your life. And as you look back, is there a gift that you didn't see at the time? Surely God is in this. Or maybe you might recall a significant dream or insight. What role does it play in your journey with God? That insight is like an exclamation mark. Surely God is in this place. These kinds of questions prompt the kind of storytelling that give rise to spiritual memoir. So this is a question I offer for sharing, just in 2s or 3s. Which of these questions in this moment might prompt you to do some storytelling, whether it be with yourself or with someone else? Which of these questions would prompt you? That's what I'm inviting you to share. Not so much to get into your answer, but which of the questions might prompt you into some storytelling about where God is. Because that's what leads to spiritual memoir. So let's take a few minutes in 2s or 3s. So maybe you're sitting just by one person, maybe there's one person in front of you, you might group together as a 3 and just have a little conversation. So, welcome back. Welcome back. So I invite you to take that card with you when you leave, and whether you just pray about it or think about it or have a conversation with someone who's in your household or a friend or just wonder a bit. Those are prompts for the kind of storytelling that leads us into honoring the sacred in our midst, which is spiritual memoir. For our prayers this morning, we're calling it kindling our prayers, as I light some candles. And we will share in a rhythm of song and lighting a candle, space. I will say a sentence, a spoken prayer, and leave a pause or a space. First, we will have some gratitudes, and if in that time you want to name aloud those things for which you are grateful, we invite you to do so, or to hold those prayers in your heart, whatever you're most comfortable. We'll sing. I'll light another candle and hold some space for our prayers for others and for our world, and the same if you're moved to name aloud those intercessions. We welcome that, or for you to hold them in the silence. And then we'll sing some more and light a final candle for our journey in our faith. And so we join in prayer with the song, A Light is Gleaming. Surely, God is in this. We light this candle giving thanks for those times we can sing and shout gratitude and offer those in prayer.
get into bed every night, I get into that bed. I'm just so thankful to be able to lay down in that bed.
For rest. For warm bed.
I'm thankful for the spirit, the community, the number of people who are volunteering. Linda's example, we have real team working here in the pancake breakfast. We think of Jerry when he does recycling, and there's just so many prayers of gratitude that we share.
Grateful for natural areas where you can feel at peace in the natural environment and place to God.
Yesterday I walked on the beach of what's called Two Rivers in New Orleans with a group of 8 folks, teenagers, young children, aged people. We watched the tides in the Bay of Fundy splash on the rocks. I'm grateful for the friends around me, the love of God around me, and the peacefulness of that moment. For good friends who walk beside us.
For a family that gives us support when we're not too well.
For all these things spoken and held in our hearts, thanks be, and we sing. There are moments that cause us to question, surely God is in this. And so we light a candle for the people and places needing assurance this day that God is indeed present. And we speak these prayers aloud or hold them in our hearts.
Pray for those people in Saskatchewan and that hurricane of accident. Pray for many of those young hockey players. Surely God is in that.
For that family who lost their son by a hit and run in St. Charles.
for Aboriginal communities who have lost their culture and their identity and their meaning.
In the prayers we have spoken and the prayers we hold in our hearts, may the light of God's presence shine. And we sing. Surely God is in this. We light a candle with our prayer that we may live in the way of Jesus, serving in love, practicing peace and justice, bringing light to others. And Jesus showed us a brighter path to walk. He showed us things we hadn't seen. Now we, like Jesus, can help creation shine, and this will be the sign. Amen. And now, as our invitation to generosity, the invitation to generously share of ourselves, of our presence, of our time, of our talents, and yes, our financial gifts for the ministry that we share, we dedicate these gifts in song. And now the invitation to share the announcements of our community. I don't know if folks have any to share. I have a couple that I might mention. First is this small group study. We mentioned it in our newsletter. And this is the small group study that came out of this spiritual memoir project. And we're going to start it on the 19th of April. Our plan is to hold it from 10:30 to noon, so on a Thursday morning. It will be hosted in the community room where Anna and Bill Peters lives on Carson Drive. The address is there in the announcements. And the first session will be sort of taking the theme of today and developing it a bit more, honoring the sacred in our lives. And then each week afterwards, we'll have another theme that is sort of following the worship themes as well. But it will be different than what it was this morning, for sure. We're offering it in the morning. If we find that there are some folks who are really interested in this that can only come at night, the sign-up sheet is there on the giving table in the foyer. There's a section towards the bottom that says, I prefer an evening. Just jot your name down. These small group studies are such that there's sort of an ideal kind of number anyway for sharing a conversation. So if there was enough people that wanted an evening one, well, we can schedule an evening one too, and whether it's right away or a few weeks down the road or even in the fall. So let us know if you can't come on Thursday morning, but you're interested. And there's also a sign-up sheet there for Stroll for the Soul, which was also mentioned in the newsletter, the announcements there in the bulletin. Sort of not a group thing. You get an email, a bit of encouragement to get out this spring and walk, and sort of an invitation for meditation or reflection in your daily movement practice of whatever that might be. So, Wednesday night, CLT's on Tuesday night meeting. Wednesday night, we're going to reconvene the group that met back at the end of February who were interested in talking about the future of the Stilesville campus. So there were a few people that went away from that gathering to gather some information. They're going to share that back. So if you came to that meeting several weeks ago and you'd like to come again, join us on Wednesday evening at 7, probably downstairs in the hall. And if you weren't there but you're interested, come along, and the notes will be circulated this week from our first meeting. It's just an ad hoc group of those interested in that subject as we move to the future. Helen?
Just a reminder, UCW meets Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock at Daphne Pearson's home.
Any other announcements?
In areas of the world, they're celebrating Easter today in the Syrian Orthodox Church. They're sort of a week off of the Catholic Church there.
That's because they don't count Saturdays.
Is that why?
That's exactly why.
Huh?
Saturdays and Sundays are not days in Lent for the Orthodox.
Okay, and so that would be Minar's tradition, who was our refugee from Syria who was here a few weeks ago, and John interviewed him and he shared his story. And I guess would the Ukrainian Orthodox Church be the same too? Would it, Jim, which is your sort of heritage? Yeah. Happy Easter. Happy Easter. Tell Minar, Happy Easter. You're speaking with them. Anything else, folks?
I'm thinking that, we probably should have brunches on Sunday since we've had several out the door this morning.
They had to be for lunch later.
Joan, were you going to speak anything about things that we're needing? No, I was speaking. Well, I don't know about beans, but we have quite a few sweets frozen, but we would need a few more, I believe it. We don't know how many will be there, so I would say, it could be our business. Yeah, could be. So, we still need some sweets, and I don't know about beans, Joan. Yes? Was that a yes? Yes, well, the people that. Yeah.
I take it some people have mentioned they're making beans, and you're saying you still need them. If you haven't, and you could contribute some, talk to Joe.
Yeah.
We need more sweets, probably, but we'll go in the freezer and get used in our conversation time anyway in the weeks forthcoming.
And our challenge, we'd really like to have the biggest Saturday ever. We'll make poor Peter here just work off his feet and handing out plates. Get the jungle drums. Please talk to your friends. We've had a very good season. This is our last week next Saturday, so as much as you can between 8 and 1, love to see you there and your friends.
Thank you. Yes?
Did anybody tell us how many we had yesterday?
Peggy?
294.
294, someone hit the number there, 294, which may be a few less than often the third Sunday. It was also a bit of a messy day, so.
I thought there were 500.
It was very busy, but then from about 11:30 on was pretty slow, so, yeah.
And every week we have sold over $100 worth of books.
Wow. Good stuff. Okay. While we're singing our closing song, you each received a light. And Claudia, would you like to help me? We're going to light people's candles as part of the blessing. And so maybe it's just as well to sit for this. It might be easier. And so we sing, "As a fire is meant for burning." Someone joked with me whether it was Christmas Eve again. But there's other times for us to have a candle as a symbol. We have it every week. Every week we light it as we gather and keep these burning. And we change it as we leave, reminding us that that presence of light, although it's in a different form, doesn't look quite the same. It journeys with us. So this light, each week you're going to have a little gift after these services. And this week it's a candle to remind you of that fire, the sacred fire that's in our midst, like this campfire we had here. That the source of stories, the source of light, the source of love. And so here's a light. Take it with you. Let it be fire for you in the week ahead.
We go to live our stories in shouts of gratitude, in longing for hope, through murmurs and tears,
in wonder and with delight. Surely God is in this.
God is in our stories. This light reminds us
of the sacred in our days and in our nights. Blessed be you.
And blessed be you. Amen.